All right, we're recording. Here we go. Goodfelds, they literally call everything racist.
You're 14 years old. When I was 14, if you please, at ease. I keep forgetting I'm president.
Same here, Joe.
That's ridiculous.
Amazing.
And what's particularly ridiculous is how, like, Biden is just sort of like he basically his policies are not even that different, you know? Like, there's not even that much difference between Democrats and Republicans. Like, okay, Biden is now actually finally getting stuff done, and I think that's why Republicans are having so much animosity. But like, Biden could literally be doing everything that the Republicans want him to, and they would still hate him just for being a Democrat. Like, literally, you know. Like at this point, they would basically, if the Biden just adopted the exact Republican policy platform, then the Republicans would adopt like the Marjorie Taylor Greene platform unanimously, and then they would still call him a commie for being like for doing what the current Republican Party platform is. That's why I'm saying you shouldn't compromise with Republicans, because Republicans are just completely crazy and evil and just do everything to basically their entire position is just resisting Democrats and being evil.
Given how bad her day went.
And other thing, notice I gave a thumbs down to this. It's your duty. If you're watching this right now, it's your duty. If you agree with, like, if you at all agree that Fox is bad, okay, it's your duty. If you don't know what to do, just go on every Fox video you can find and downvote it. Okay, any Fox News video you can find, you downvote it. Yeah, that is at least. I know it's very small, but it's useful. Comments are turned off. Anywhere where the comments are turned on, you write comments against it. I want you to just flood. Of course, for now it's not possible, but imagining that there were there was a movement against Fox News, it could actually be quite useful if people watching Fox actually saw that there's a huge amount of downvotes. I think that would be very useful, and it really saddens me to see how few dislikes there are. In fact, it saddens me to see just how people just stay in their own bubbles and just don't even bother going onto Fox News. Obviously, it's just nonsense, right? So you wouldn't bother actually seeing it, but it could be useful to just go onto it to, just to downvote it,
She have a tough time getting up this morning.
I did.
John, go!
Oh my gosh.
Thank God she's fine. But her commute to work was a thing.
Hardcore to work.
But you made it in, so we're happy. So, you must be a racist rube, right, Mara? It makes it clear who they don't like, and it's half the country. The half that shows their love for their country.
No.
That means
Okay, that is such nonsense. I hate it when they sort of co-opt Americana. I hate when Republicans co-opt Americana and claim to be like real Americans when no, they're like fake Americans, okay? Like literally, their stuff is like medieval feudalist stuff. It's totally un-American because they oppose the democratic values, right? They oppose individual freedom. They oppose everything that sort of made America, that set America apart from most European countries. Of course, the first democratic movement started, in England already, but they still had a monarchy. And a good thing about, I mean, you could say that the UK was the first modern country to have a democracy, but the US was the first modern country to have a non-monarchical democracy. Obviously, it was only for still a certain category of people, but still, I mean that is something significant. And if that is what you sort of think about if that is what you mean by saying that this is American, well, Republicans aren't that, because they are a legacy of like basically feudalist slaveholders.
you must be a racist rube, right, Mara?
I was really disturbed. I saw, dozens and dozens of pickup trucks with, explicatives against Joe Biden on the back of them, Trump flags, and some cases just dozens of American flags, which, is also just disturbing because essentially the message was clear. It was, this is my country. This is not your country.
Yeah, and it is very disturbing because what they're saying is, to be a proper American, you have to be an idiot. You have to be an evil idiot. That is what they're saying. And that is why you have to fight it. And have you seen, I've been fighting it in my own way. I've been fighting it by for instance, wearing that Clint Eastwood poncho, and I've been, and wearing my cowboy hat and stuff. I don't know if you've seen. I've also got a nice red old pickup truck. I didn't do it on purpose. I just do it because I like this style, and I'm just like I'm not doing it to appeal to Republicans. They're completely gone. What I'm doing it for is to show these sort of idiot Democrat people that to make them really understand, and just the people who are kind of on the fence and the people who don't really have any partisan allegiance. I want to show them that Republicans are complete hypocrites. I want to show them that they don't care at all about American values, and that they're just adopting this Americana in a completely illegitimate fashion, and I want to reclaim it. I want to reclaim it from these degenerate parasites.
I own this.
Explicatives.
Yes, the new word.
Amazing. So you know who else was disturbed by seeing dozens of American flags? The Nazis at Normandy.
Kind of ironic considering that you are a Nazi and like you're literally using like you turned the American flag into a Nazi symbol. But yeah.
Divisive
Okay,
and
jumping ahead.
racist to not agree with her, even when she can't do the math. Oh, you got to remember this.
You see it as a possibility if he wants to spend $1 billion beating this guy, he could do it.
Absolutely. Somebody tweeted recently that actually with the money he spent, he could have given every American $1 million.
I've got it. Let's put it up on the screen. When I read it tonight on social media.
Bloomberg spent $500 million, and now the U.S. population is 327 million. He could have given each American $1 million and still have money left over. I feel like $1 million check would be life changing for most people. They wasted on ads and still lost. No, they're not. that is a complete mistake. He could have given $1 to each American. Yeah, okay, so she screwed up. Okay, just because one of your political opponents screws up doesn't mean that you are right about everything. Okay, that's just sort of basic logic here. You know what I mean? So.
Media, it kind of all became clear. Bloomberg spent $500 million on ads. U.S. population 327 million. Don't tell us if you're ahead of us on the math. He could have given each.
In politics.
Sorry, too much money in politics isn't the problem. It's not enough brains in the media. I mean, who did the math for her? Cat? Now, of course, it's obvious Bloomberg's 500 million would only give $1 million to 500 people, not $1 million each to 330 million people. That would take 330 trillion bucks. When Joe Biden heard that number, though, immediately announced a new $330 trillion stimulus plan. Everyone gets $1 million. President Oprah. Fact is, it's no surprise the media can't do simple arithmetic. Newspaper food writer Raj Patel claims.
Okay, so this is maybe less interesting. I don't know, because they're just like looking at like mistakes that people did and just being silly about it. I can't even really comment much. Food injustice has deep roots. Let's start with America's apple pie. Oh, this is why he was talking about apple pie in that previous video. Why Tucker was saying that you can't, like, apple pie is banned. Apples traveled to Spanish colonists in the 1500s, used to be called Columbian Exchange, but is now understood as a vast and ongoing genocide of indigenous people.
Pie is racist, for the dessert is linked to a vast and ongoing genocide of indigenous people. They'd literally call anything racist as long as it's not a newspaper. Raj claims that apple pie has deep roots in slavery and colonialism based on stolen land, wealth, and labor, which kind of sounds like China right now, LeBron.
I can sort of see that would be a sort of this sort of excessive, weird leftism that ends up being actually more racist than it intends to solve. Like it ends up actually causing more problems than it solves. This would be an instance where I would have to read the whole thing, but that might be a valid criticism here.
But also, apple trees are racist too. And Johnny Appleseed, more like Johnny Crappleseed. Yeah, he still got it. He took the trees to mark the frontiers of U.S. expansion, which destroyed the communities. So yeah, Johnny Appleseed was a bad seed. But Raj isn't done yet.
But the thing, of course, I bet he just reads it from the prompter, so it's not like he actually still got it. So that's hypocritical anyway.
Oh, that's an easy one, honey. 2 parts Crisco and 1 part slave labor. Yep. Raj says the sugar in the crust was courtesy of the French slave trade. Better throw out those Kamala cookies. I'd say she's the face of colonialism, but as you can see, there's no face there. That's very creepy. So, just
Yeah,
like everything else, pie crust is racist.
You're being creepy too.
I wonder how the angry white male feels about that.
Hungry as fuck.
You know what? The guy makes some good points. I don't want to make anyone angry. No more apple pie for me. After this piece, of course. That's good.
What is this?
You know what? I don't know about this. Oppression is delicious.
Oppression is delicious. How white of him. Angry black male, anything to add?
Okay, so I kind of made fun of Tucker for saying apple pie is banned, but the problem is we'd have to see the original Guardian. Let's have a look at the original source, because otherwise, see, this is the problem is that Fox, Fox watchers, they only see Fox's take on it. So, let's see, Guardian, American apple pie, injustice, racism. Here we go. Food injustice has deep roots. Let's start with America's apple pie. Okay, is this still recording? Yeah, we're still here. From amnesia about apple pie to burger battlefields, author and academic Raj Patel says today's food justice fights have long, bloody histories. Okay, now let's just check. Unfortunately, I can't really tell if you're able to see the whole thing, so I gotta put it like more. Crap. I think I'll make this a bit smaller. Can I make this a bit smaller here? My own self. Oops. Is it still recording? I hope it doesn't stop the recording. Okay. This way, where I'm less likely to cover the text. Okay, so I'm miniaturized. Resting on Jing. I don't even know what that is. Gingham. A cloth. A sugar-crusted apple pie cools on the windowsill of a Midwestern farmhouse. Nothing could be more American. Blah blah. Not that apples are particularly American. Apples were first domesticated in Central Asia, making the journey along the Silk Road to the Mediterranean 4,000 years ago. But yeah, but then you got to bear in mind, on the other hand, that for instance, potatoes are American. They're not Irish. They're tomatoes. They're American. They're not Italian. Corn is American. Chocolate is American. Yeah. Is it so? And did I kill the recording? I'm always afraid because like the connection to my external hard drive it always tends to like break. So yeah. This is Colombian exchange, but now understood as a vast and ongoing genocide of indigenous people. Okay, so they really said that. Okay, that's a bit much. I mean, it was a genocide, but I don't think. I mean, it was partly. Yeah, I mean, it was a genocide, but there also was the exchange aspect. Like botanically, it wasn't a genocide. I think it's kind of silly to conflate the fact that you've imported certain plants with genocide, because like the plants there's been just as much importation from America to the old world in terms of plants. So I mean, the genocide is one thing, the plant thing is something else. So it is kind of silly. Okay, by the time the English colonized the New World, apple trees had become markers of civilization, which is to say property. John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed, took these markers of colonized property to the frontiers of U.S. expansion, where his trees stood as symbols that indigenous communities had been extirpated. Yeah, okay, fair enough. The point is that, yeah, there is some kind of symbolism linked to genocide. On the other hand, like, what do you want to do about it? Like, apples taste good. Native Americans are allowed to buy apples and, like, the dough for apple pie. So, I don't know. So, yeah, so this is actually true. Okay, but let's have a look at this. Okay, so first they say, scratch the surface of a large chocolate, a tuna sandwich, or even a chicken nugget, and you find the horrors of international trade, violence, exploitation, poverty, and profit. Yeah, there's a lot of that, but at the same time, I think it's important to realize that the international trade is actually building up the economies of poorer countries, at least to some extent, and so, and I'm actually very pro. I'm not even pro international trade. I'm pro global trade, a national global trade. In 2020, the wisest and most racially segregated job in the settler state was the appraising of property. Wait, let's just zoom this actually. Maybe you're not seeing this so well. And the second widest was managing a farm. It is hardly coincidence that the largest farmland owner in the United States is one of the country's richest men, Bill Gates. In the United States, the legacy contradictions within the food system are particularly acute. Yeah, let's have a land tax, land value tax, like the Georgists say. Land value tax, absolutely. Let's do it. 80% of rental land value. 7 out of 10 worst paying jobs in America are in the food system, and women are overrepresented in them. Nearly a third of families headed by single mothers are likely to be food insecure, and food insecurity is systematically higher in communities of people of color. Yeah, there's been a boom in the service industry. Yeah, so blah blah, and saying that yeah, that basically that people are struggling. The stuff we know, the stuff we know. Again, basic income. What that does is A, you don't even have to work to have a decent, like, or an acceptable quality of life. B, if you want to work, well, any income is on top, so it's not like the benefits where you lose the benefits when you start working. And C, it'll actually massively raise the wages of low-paying jobs, precisely because nobody, I mean, like low-skilled jobs, because nobody is going to want to do them if they're poorly paid anymore. So that is why you need basic income. Let's read about this. Tipping. Actually, I was going ahead, but there has been a boom in the service industry over the past decade. Yet when that work is occasional or characterized by shift work, as so much food service work is, you're more likely to be hungry. In part, that's because many precarious jobs are low wage and depend on tipping. Tipping was a European feudal relic imported to the United States by the well-traveled Victorian-era American upper class. Initially, it was widely reviled. Yeah, I'm against. I mean, I believe in a salary for waiters. Even as late as 1905, it was possible to find restaurants in St. Louis with signs in the window announcing no tipping. Tipping is not American. Yeah, I agree. Tipping stuck in the United States because it helped keep employers' wage bill low and fit with racist sentiments like those of journalist John Speed, who wrote, "Tips go with servility, and no man who's a voter in this country is in the least justified in being in service." Oh yeah. The Pullman Car Company hired black men from the South to work because he is more adapted to wait on people and serve with a smile. Yeah, I'm anti-tipping. The minimum wage for tipped employees has increased since 1991. It's still $2.13 an hour. Yeah, that is not. Well, actually, no. I'm actually anti-minimum wage. I mean, if you have a basic income, you give a basic income, and then you'll see that the salary, like nobody's gonna do it for that price. So you'll just have to, yeah, people will have to pay their workers more. That's why you need a basic income. In part, that's because the restaurant industry has always fought back. Herman Cain, the man who was co-chair of Black Voices for Trump until he attended a Trump rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and died of complications related to COVID-19. But see, that's the thing. For now, like, you don't have any laws, and that's just the free market, right? People are willing to work for that low salary and tips on top of that. So you could regulate it by providing a minimum wage. But in a way, it would simplify things tremendously to just not bother with any kind of regulation like that. See, and that's why I prefer also the basic income, just also to simplify things, irrespectively of any of the other benefits of basic income. So Herman Cain, the man who was co-chair of Black Voices for Trump until he attended a Trump rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and died of complications related to COVID-19. That's horrible. I'm not gonna, like, I laughed, but like it's just absurd. But obviously it's still sad. Had a hand in undoing the legislation that tied the tipped wage to the minimum wage. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Cain was chair of the National Restaurant Association, a group that activist Saru Jayaraman calls the other NRA. So see, if we were to not implement basic income, I would suggest giving a minimum wage, a decent minimum wage for restaurant workers. But instead, I just prefer doing basic income. The power of U.S. trade associations extends not just to the domestic economy, but internationally. You can't spell food industry without USTR, the United States Trade Representative, whose job it is to secure U.S. business interests overseas. Through treaties at the World Trade Organization and through NAFTA, the U.S. has done everything from generate an epidemic of diet-related disease in Mexico to decimate peasant food production in the global south. Yeah, yep, they've been doing that. Please let us stop subsidizing agriculture anywhere, actually. Just, again, I want a globalized society. You just don't subsidize it anywhere, and that way you just pay for food at market price, right? Republicans, I thought you wanted a free market, no government interference. Well, how about let's stop subsidizing agriculture, you commies? But the U.S. is happy to blame the migrants fleeing the economic consequences of U.S. agribusiness. That's actually really great. That is one. It's not so much global warming at this point, but yeah, the consequences that people can't even earn a living properly because they're being flooded with U.S. goods that are artificially low priced thanks to subsidies. And yet the U.S. continues to have a farm sector dependent on migrant labor. Yeah, the whole thing is absurd. The history of the U.S. food system has always, however, been one of struggle. Food justice is a term that is intelligible only because oppressed and exploited communities have organized for redress against the predations of U.S. capitalism. The U.S. was made by finding ever lower labor costs, and workers always fought back. Food justice and its opposite are of a piece. Consider the burger. America's red meat republic has long been the arena for struggles for justice. This is true even within the most iconic job in beef production, the one featured alongside apple pie at the U.S. Department of Defense's greatest hits of American iconography, cowboys. Although the myth of cowboys insists that they ranged alone, seldom hearing discouraging words, the truth was that they were exploited as a class and knew it. Wages were low and workers were frustrated by wage theft and underpayment. In 1883, they organized a legal strike, one that spread from Texas to Wyoming. Timing their actions to the spring harvest, when investors were about to receive their profits, cowboys united to demand higher wages, better coffee, and the demands that cooks on the trail be paid as well as anyone else. For a while, they won, at least until 1888, when a combination of industry restructuring, anti-worker organizing by bosses, and brutal weather broke the back of worker militancy. Further down the beef production chain, unions in Chicago's squalid meatpacking industry were recruiting. In Upton Sinclair's classic 1907 novel, The Jungle, workers aren't passive amid the filth and horrors heaped upon them. They strike back. For a while, it even looked like they might win sweeping change. The final sentences are a hymn to the inevitability of socialism in Chicago. Man, this is long and it's tiring me to read, but it's kind of interesting, so I think I'll have a look at that. Well, I mean, but is there copyright stuff? Because in any case, you're like seeing the ads. If there are ads, are there ads? Did you get to see the ads so that like? But no, there aren't even any ads, are there? Where are the ads? There are no ads. Look, I don't see how this would be like a copyright breach. It doesn't make sense. Like if I'm showing you the ads and there aren't any ads anyway, it doesn't make sense. And like that way, I'm directing you to the Guardian. Like literally, I should be paid to directing people to the Guardian. Yeah, well, okay, so we're just looking at the history of this stuff. So there's just like people who have been underpaid and stuff, okay? But I guess the problem is that the Republicans are just seeing apple pie is bad, you know? They're just seeing apple pie means colonial oppression, and they're not actually reading the whole article when the article itself is actually good. And like they're not saying stop eating apple pie, okay? They're not saying stop eating apple pie. They're just basically making people aware of, you know, food inequities, right? Food inequities. That is an issue, and it's something that needs to be addressed, and that needs to be addressed through very simple policies of full globalization, combined with full cessation of subsidizing food and full global income, basic income. Okay, let's go back to Fox. Is it still recording? Amazingly enough, it is. Okay, I'm still recording. That was my Twitch that's dead for now. Hopefully it will rise again from the ashes. Actually, let's watch this full screen. I realize we can watch this full screen. Maybe we can watch this in better quality. Because this is kind of bad.
So.
No. What?
So. She finds it disturbing that people are out driving trucks, waving the American flags, minding their own business a couple weeks after Memorial Day.
She's not.
I find it disturbing that they allow people to talk.
She's not saying that it's disturbing that they're waving American flags. It's disturbing that they're using these flags as a Nazi symbol.
Talk about things who can't pass basic math.
Yeah, that's one person who did a big mistake. Yeah, except that you obviously can't pass basic rationality.
You know what else I find disturbing? Every time I go over to my white friend's house and take a shower, never have washcloths. That's disturbing.
Why did they?
Also,
Let's
his head's
stab him.
above the shower head, which is amazing. Thank God for cicadas. Did you know that the White House press charter plane scheduled to leave
For cicadas.
D.C.
Oh yeah.
last night was delayed by the insect, which had invaded the plane's exterior sections? Something about them being attracted to Jim Acosta's cologne. The plane was set to leave ahead of Joe Biden's first trip abroad, but was held up for 7 hours. So how did they solve the problem? They called in the one person who could save the day using only her mouth.
Are you ready?
Cheers.
Actually, I'm less scared of this. Okay. Oh, the crunch. Do I have a wing hanging out of my mouth?
Oh, this is the eating cicadas.
So many cicadas that when the
I've actually considered this idea of eating insects instead of like, you know, vertebrates, and basically I tried a bit. I tried actually at the Minko, that, you know, shop in Switzerland, food shop. They actually sold some crickets. They sold crickets, like adult dried crickets, and really wasn't great. And you look at like the food content, and like you really would have to go through a lot of crickets to get like nutriments, like to get like a fair amount of calories. So I don't think that's actually the way to go. I'm sorry to say.
the temperature hits 90, she emits a loud buzz. Now there's a true American hero. So for the 4th of July, if you can't eat apple pie, try the cicadas. Until we find out that's racist too.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it would be like their stuff would be like potentially funny, you know, if like it wasn't like basically the entire thing wasn't just bad faith propaganda, right?
And they gave him a group discount,
Oh, it's
and
him.
he was dining alone. My massive sidekick and host of Enough Said on Fox. The American flag fill you with fear?
Again, he's misrepresenting the whole question. He's misrepresenting the entire issue, essentially, by portraying it as a problem of flying the American flag, when actually it's a bunch of people who are obviously ostentating a kind of a vision of exclusionary, fundamentally inequitous, you know, inegalitarian, like a fundamentally, you know, unjust ideology. Basically, the idea that some people are more worth, like literally have more rights than other people's. And that's what these people are. That's what Republicans are by and large, and they don't even understand that that's what they are. And that's what Democrats are too, because Democrats are also nationalists, and so they're also Nazis. And that's something that the actual socialists recognize, is that the Democrats, in a way, the purpose of the Democrats has been, since the advent of socialism, one of their roles has been to actually stifle socialism by directing all sort of social oriented activism towards the Democratic Party. Now, that being said, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because like obviously the actual socialist countries weren't great. So like maybe that's not such a bad thing, but it's just something to bear in mind. And the problem is that the Democratic Party isn't, like, in many ways, isn't even all that left wing, even within a capitalist framework. And as we've seen, because they're completely okay with having people earn enormous amounts, and not just having enormous amounts, but even taxing them very little. Like, you know, they're okay with having billionaires. They're okay with having people earn tens of millions a year. And so I'm not okay with that at all. I like I said, I want a cap on income at 100,000 US dollars after taxes per year, and a wealth cap at 100 times that, so 10 million US dollars.
No, I was thinking though, you know, like if people put a flag at their house, are they saying like, I own this, it's not yours? Like, yeah, kind of, you know, kind of they are. You know, I thought I think the reaction of the New York Times is interesting. They obviously circled the wagons around her. Wouldn't you love to be in the meeting? Because they obviously have so much stress when they're deciding, are we going to circle the wagons or aren't we going to circle the wagons?
Right.
Like Barry Weiss was out the door. That was by her own choice. And then they, you know, ditched their science professor, who was a great COVID-19 reporter for something that he said a few years ago at an outing that they had already settled between them.
Right.
Then when the Daily Beast wrote about it, they got together again and said, I'm so sorry, you have to go. And like Barry Weiss says, Twitter, you know, sort of runs their...
I get the feeling overall I've got more material with Tucker. Like I've got more objections all the time. Like here they're just sort of discussing actual things, like more uncontroversial factual stuff to some extent, and as a result I can't just object all the time.
Ultimately. So, but she got lucky. They decided they're going to, because of her math skills,
So
they decided they would keep her around.
No, it just depends where you are on the spectrum of political ideology. They will not save you if you are any further right of left of center. Then you're gone.
yeah, except that they also like hate on people like AOC. So like,
So Barry Weiss gets to go. The scientist gets to go. She gets to stay because, again, she's really good at math. Is the media, Dave, just going down all the things that America's good at and tracing them back to something evil? Is that the new game?
Well, at this point, I don't think there's that many things that America's good at. So they've made it pretty easy for them. It's bizarre. I don't know what angle to take on this.
And what I hate is that they portray like the establishment to be like leftists and like that they're like, you know, the sort of brave warriors against leftist establishments. But it isn't true. That the establishment are, you know, like center right. Like this is what makes no sense. Is that they're like it has nothing to do with socialism, and I don't know. They just conflate establishment U.S. politics, which is like center right, and like socialism just makes so little sense. And like even Republicans, and that's the other ridiculous thing is that Republicans aren't even far right; they're also center right, like economically, because they also like, you know, quite a bit of government interference in all sorts of things. So it's like Democrats are center right, and Republicans are center right too. So like there isn't even much difference between them. That's what's even more absurd.
One of the weird things, obviously, that was stupid and judgmental, and the craziest thing is that it's so snobbish.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, they make the so-called left. I don't see this as being very left-wing. Actually, it's very corporate.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. Thank
The
you.
woman, a professional, looking down her nose at people in what? A pickup truck.
Right.
But because she's decided she's lefty and they're like white supremacists or whatever, she gets to say they're the powerful. But I almost wonder, why are conservatives still flying the flag? I mean, it's like, it's Joe Biden's government. The media hates you.
Yeah.
The war on terror has been focused in at right-wingers.
Right.
And you rubes are still out there waving the flag. Maybe you should put it down.
So you're saying they should become radicalized?
They should become the radical left.
There
That's
you
what
go.
I'm saying.
That's what you're trying to say.
They should want revolution at this point.
Well, they try.
But in a way, ironically, like he doesn't realize it, but yeah, he's right. Is that those pickup truck type people would actually benefit themselves, even personally, from radical, what they would call, what Fox would call radical left policies, which I don't call radical left policies at all, which what I call like right of center policies, which is the kind of policies that I support, which involves things like basic income. It does not involve a complete government takeover of all economic production, but basic income, yeah, that is like right, basic income within a capitalist framework. I think that is something we could call right of center, in an absolute sense. And they would, so what, you know, most people would call in the United States would call radical left. So yeah, I think those pickup truck guys would definitely benefit from that, because they wouldn't be forced to work anymore to earn a living. They could just be on a basic income, and if they lots of those kind of people often don't have all that much education. They don't have that many like degrees and things like that, which means that their jobs are typically low paid because anybody can do them. So there's a high supply of labor for those jobs. And so in our current system, well, anybody's willing to do them because they just need to not just like be homeless or just like depend on like, you know, some sort of marginal help, aid, whatever. So loads of people are willing to do them, and so those lots of jobs for that don't require like lots of skill are paid like shit. And with basic income, that would no longer be the case because people would just say, "Screw this! I'm not going to work if I'm paid like shit." So again, you know, all you sort of middle American Trump people, you know, flag, beard, gun, pickup people, you would benefit from radical left, i.e., right of center policies.
Some of them do, believe me. Yeah. Not in my family, but you know, a couple of the neighbors are a little out there. Tyrus, that was I sympathize with you when you're taking a shower.
How could you possibly?
I didn't say empathize. I said sympathize. I sympathize. I don't know. It's very uncomfortable.
It is. It is. It's. You know, you just get used to it after a while. But what I'm glad this whole racist thing's coming out about apple pie because I've had some issues, and I'm glad we're bringing it up because you just can't stop at the apple pie.
No.
I mean, yes, that's the gateway to becoming a grand wizard, but we got to go a little further than that. Let's talk about water.
Water, yeah.
What were the overseers drinking while the rest of us were working? Water, probably with an ice cube in it.
Yeah.
So we got ice and water, racist.
Okay, he kind of makes a point. I'm gonna stop here again for copyright reasons. Yeah, again, people sometimes just like if people suddenly start saying like, oh, maybe we shouldn't consume apple pie anymore because it's racist, that would be ridiculous. I just don't think anybody's actually saying that. On the other hand, what they are saying is stuff like cultural appropriation, like, oh, you can't wear dreadlocks, you know. I mean, I remember that. There's loads of other examples, but the funny thing, of course, is if you wanted to be consistent, well, then we should say we're not allowed to eat watermelons as Europeans either, because watermelons are an African fruit. And likewise, we should say that Africans aren't allowed to eat apples, actually, because that is cultural appropriation of Europe for Europeans, right? They're appropriating European culture. So obviously, there is criticism to be made about these sort of, this idea of cultural appropriation, but the problem is that their Fox and Co.'s take on it is completely wrong and just even worse than what the Democrats are doing and the leftists and communists and whatever. Okay, that's the end.